so when you can. Do we have someone on the phone?
Yeah, this is Betsy. I'm here on the phone.
Hey, Betsy, how are you?
Hi, Betsy.
Hey, Janet. Good.
Good
How you
morning.
doing? Good morning.
Okay, so it's Betsy Beanack, myself, Commissioner Starkey. Everybody else is not here. Who should be here is our chair, Melanie Griffin, Cliff Manuel, and Commissioner Kemp, who was, yeah. So anyway, well, as you know, I think everybody knows, we've narrowed our search committee down to 4 people that we're going to be interviewing next week. And Catherine is reminding me that I should have asked for public comment, but as I look around the room, not sure there's anyone here that wants to comment. Rick, do you have something to say?
Kelly?
Ron? I don't know this gentleman, do I?
I'm Don. I'm an intern at the partnership.
Your name is?
Don, D-O-N.
D-O-N.
Oh, Swartz.
And you're with the Tampa
Partnership.
Bay Partnership.
Did I hear intern?
Yes.
Okay.
He's
That's
You
a
got
student
that?
in Ron Pierce's government class, and Ron is seeding
Excellent.
all the agencies
Thank you
across.
for being here. I love it when young
Been there,
people-
done that.
Brad, please come and take the appropriate seat.
Okay,
Brad,
I just
what
heard,
happened?
Brad Miller.
I already need to sign something.
Where's Kelly?
Katina's up there.
Well, Katina was here, but she left. She's going back over to your team. Omar is here,
Yes.
representing the,
TBARTA.
he's an intern with TBARTA
Yeah.
That's, I was just delayed by them.
and our staff.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Melanie Grafton joined as well.
oh, hey, Melanie, welcome.
Thank you.
We're just going around the room identifying everyone that's here. Mostly it's folks from the Tampa Bay Partnership, Ron Pierce, Brad Miller, Debbie, of course. Commissioner Starkey is here, myself, Betsy Beanack is on the phone, Michael is here, Susan is here, Omar, we have a new intern at TBARTA. I did not know, but it's great to have him here.
Thank you.
Are you in school as well?
Yeah, I'm at USF right now. I'm actually in the same class as Don over there with Ron.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, so welcome everybody and thank you for being here. So this is just kind of an overview of what we're trying to accomplish in the next month or two, which we seem to be pretty well on track because we do have our executive director search moving along really well. We've identified 4 candidates that are coming back, 2 of which are very strong. And then Debbie has placed us in a terrific position financially. And do you want to speak to that, Debbie, for just a minute? Where we are and what you see us doing going forward so that we can kind of position ourselves to discuss the rest of the agenda for the legislature this fall.
Certainly. Right now we're finishing up, we're in the last little bit of fiscal 18, and as we'll be discussing in the Finance Committee meeting, we can actually see that we have about an $86,000 positive variance, a net profit. So that's good. What's important next year is we've outlined in the budget where everything needs to be put, which has been one of the issues of, where do the expenses go into which grant? So we've made it very clear on how we're going to be doing that. Next year we anticipate a budgeted surplus of around $29,000, which we will need to grow. And I'm also looking into perhaps a line of credit. I've already started doing that to allow TBARTA not to have to rely on FDOT so much for advance payments. So we're getting there, slowly but surely, but we're getting there. Actually, I think we've made great advances in the last few months.
You have, and I'm grateful that we've been able to use the credibility and the integrity of PSTA with our partners to be able to draw this money down the way you have. So kudos to you and Brad and the rest of your team for doing that. I guess in the legislative ask, which primarily is the focus of with this committee today. We've identified that our revenue that we will need on an ongoing basis, a recurring revenue stream, is approximately $1.5 million, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Does that ask cover the opportunity for us to bring a new executive director in at a good competitive salary, while also putting in place a 5-year window for PSTA to continue driving the financial picture of TBARTA?
It does. It allows for some growth in staff, as well as you mentioned, being able to bring someone in at a competitive basis.
All right, so does everyone agree that that's a great starting point to move forward with our legislative partners, $1.5 million for next year? Melanie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Betsy?
Yeah, I agree, and I'm glad, Janet, you asked that question, because I was going to wait and ask it in the finance committee meeting, but I was concerned about having the $175,000 being what was budgeted for executive director's salary, and I thought, well, what if that's not enough? So what I'm hearing is that we will be asking for more so that we possibly could increase that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, well, that's my goal, because I am cognizant of the fact that we have identified a really great #1 candidate who is making substantially more than that at the moment.
Right.
And how we go forward and speak with him and interact with him and negotiate with him, I think we are now in a position of great strength to do that by assuring him that this fledgling agency is on the cusp of great growth, and that though he may not come in at the salary that he would like, there certainly is an opportunity there to grow it pretty rapidly. Would you not agree, Betsy? Debbie?
Yeah.
No, I do agree.
Yeah. Does that kind of philosophy meet with everybody's approval?
Yeah, and hopefully it will work.
Okay. Well, then, it might be a good idea, Brad, that out of this discussion, we move forward at, I guess it would be the policy committee, Melanie, if you're listening, to put in place an amendment to the current interlocal agreement that we have to ensure that this person comes in and knows that he's got backup for 5 years so he can get started and he can focus more on building the relationships that are going to be needed going forward.
Yeah.
Does that sound like something that we might want to think about doing? I think that would be important. Betsy?
Hello? Sorry.
Or
I thought I was on mute. Sorry.
I'm sorry?
Melanie.
Sorry, I thought I was on mute. I just ran in. I'm good.
All right. Well, so Betsy, do you have any thoughts about that idea?
I want to make sure I understand. You're talking about extending the contract with PSTA for a 5-year window and putting that in our policy position. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm just having a conversation for the moment to see if you don't think that might be wise, given the trajectory that we're on with our finances, to make sure that when this gentleman comes in, he knows that he's got solid footing to go out and multiply and really do the best he can do, building relationships and posturing us to go forward. Because it's not like he's walking into a mature agency that's got all the appropriate staff at the moment.
Right. No, I think it's very important that we make sure that we have a plan mapped out moving forward, and I think Debbie's done a great job with that. And certainly, as we've talked about, we're going to need to add more staff, but I wouldn't want to have him come in and have his everything laid out for him. When somebody comes into an organization, there's also the opportunity to make it, what they think it needs to be. So I wouldn't want to have anything laid out or where he's obligated to any kind of other agency for 5 years. That would be my concern.
And this is Catherine, I feel the same way. I mean, I think it's great to know, for him to know he has that resource if he feels he needs it, but I wouldn't want to obligate him to it.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we continue moving forward and don't slip back. Brad, did you have thoughts?
Well, yeah. I personally would agree with both Commissioner Benak and Starkey that we don't want to force him into anything. But I think what you were trying to say, Commissioner Lyon, we want to make him or her, the new executive director, feel comfortable that they have support. That
Right.
yeah.
That's
And,
exactly what I was trying to say, because right now, walking in, he'd be going, what on earth?
Right, right. So maybe a balance between that is we do have, I would recommend that we start the process in place to extend the 6-month contract with PSTA to something longer. You know, maybe make it 5 years that can be terminated, you know, by TBARTA whenever they feel that they're ready to go, something like that.
I think 5 years is too long.
All right.
It seems a little probably too long.
Yeah. I mean, for us to say that we can't get our house in order for 5 years is not a good reflection on us. But I would say maybe 3 years and terminate it as necessary.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Can I make another suggestion? I mean, we can leave the term open-ended and just say it'll be terminated by TBARTA with 30 days notice.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and then it doesn't have to be a specific year, I mean.
That's a great suggestion. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Great. All right, so if that meets with everybody's approval, we'll recommend that. Do you want that to come to the policy committee, Melanie?
My only concern about that is that presently, Janet, because the policy committee doesn't really have business, and we can certainly get a meeting scheduled if we need to, but what Sue and I had discussed was that there may not have been a meeting. So I'm just wondering if it needs that extra step or if this could be considered it's quote-unquote vetting as opposed to sending it to an additional committee.
Can we just make that recommendation from our committee, Ellen, to go straight to the board when we make the legislative report?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for pointing that out.
And certainly it could come from the finance committee too, because it is a contract, you know,
Yeah.
relative to finances. Certainly it could come from the finance committee to say, you know, we discussed this and we think it makes sense for this to be, at this time, an open-ended contract that will be continuing unless terminated. Isn't that what we're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, and I thought that you even considered it in finance in February, so I think it, makes sense to come from one or both committees. I think that'd be perfect.
Terrific.
Yeah.
All right, well, just, I think it's good to have this conversation because in our further discussions with the legislative folks, we can let them know that, we're really working hard to have a solid plan so they don't have to worry about any of that. And so we know we want to ask for $150,000, and I would like to suggest that in doing that, for appropriations purposes, Ron, that we ask Debbie and Brad, as well as Michael, I guess, to draft the scope for that, so that we know that we have the right pieces in there to be able to utilize that money the way we now know it needs to be used. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Clearly leaving as much flexibility as we possibly can get away with going through the legislative process to allow the new executive director to, be able to make changes or have as much flexibility as we possibly can build into that $1.5 million.
Good.
Yeah, and this especially, I think, obviously when we go to the legislature with an ask, we want to have as good a story and laid out budget as we. Is that something that Debbie will be preparing, Debbie and Brad will be preparing for us as we make this ask?
Yes, Debbie's already got that prepared pretty finitely, right, Debbie?
And what I can do is extend out on the operating side, so we can take a look and see what that looks
Can you guys hear her?
Probably
I
barely.
could not, sorry.
Okay, just speak up a little louder.
Sorry, I will go ahead and on the operating side, we've got a 1-year operating, 5-year capital. What I can do is extend out the 1-year operating to like a 5-year operating so that they can see the impact of that.
And to that point, I'm not sure, I don't know if the rest of you picked up on this, but one of our candidates had an intriguing new creative idea that he indicated was the only it was brand new, nobody else had ever done it anywhere in the country in terms of how he got his operations and maintenance paid for. I thought that was, I can't wait to talk about that.
And what was it?
He didn't say. It was
Oh.
part of the, it was part of the, do you
Darn.
remember that in the video? I just was so struck by that. It really leapt right off the screen at me when he said it, and I am just dying to find out the details if he's willing to share. So we might end up with a little more in the pot than we think we have with that kind of creativity.
Yeah.
Did you remember it, Betsy? I thought I heard you laughing.
Yeah, well, it just seems like such a teaser, but yes, I remember him alluding to it. I don't remember if he said more about it, though.
He didn't give any details, which I thought, you little sly dog, you. He's just doing that to pique our curiosity. But anyway,
I had a question on that 150.
Yeah.
Was that state and federal?
no, that's just from the state legislature.
That's just for state.
Yeah, 150 million.
No, 1.5 million.
Well, I meant 1.5.
Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about legislative budget.
We are. 1.5.
No, that's a legislative ask. I thought we were talking, sorry, I don't know. I
So,
thought you were talking about something else.
so the TBARTA budget right now is about $2 million, ballpark, and then the projected future TBARTA with project managers, with a state lobbyist, with a CFO, et cetera, is estimated about $3.5 million. So 3.5 million minus 2 is 1.5.
No, I
So-
understood that. I just thought what we were talking about hiring a lobbyist. I'm sorry, did I say legislature? I meant lobbyist.
For us, for TBARTA?
Yeah.
Well, eventually, we probably will.
Okay.
But right now, we already have, since we're relying so heavily on PSTA, and we already have a public affairs person.
What did we decide at the last meeting, that we were gonna piggyback on a contract?
Manager, the TBARTA board decided to task Mr. Zimmett to investigate what piggybacking options might be available for the coming state legislative session, and I think he's prepared to give a report on that.
Okay, that's what I was kinda trying to
Excellent.
remember to pull up from the last
Really?
meeting.
Oh.
I have a memo,
Sorry.
that's, I'm prepared to finalize this afternoon, that, we just got the final information yesterday from all the governmental agencies that we contacted. Not a lot of choices. There's, I think, only 2 entities that we can piggyback on for the state and only 1 for federal. But I was gonna provide a memo to the entire board. I can probably pull up the information and talk about it today if.
Well, if you could, we'll give you a couple of seconds. If you, if you could just, pull it up and just tell us, yes, we can piggyback, or no, we can't, and then that will give us
Yeah.
a direction.
So I know by memory, so on the state lobbying,
Yeah.
the 2 people that we can piggyback on is PSTA's contract with RSA and the Pinellas County's contract with,
Southern Strategies.
Southern Strategy.
Southern Strategies.
And we both share Van Scoik in Washington.
Yes,
I
but
think we'll
but your federal contracts, your contracts with them and your procurement with them do not allow us to piggyback.
Huh?
The only federal lobbying procurement that allowed for piggybacking was Hillsborough County's, which was with Squire, Sanders, and Dennison.
Oh, that won't work.
So,
Well,
but for state, so we would have a choice between RSA and Southern Strategy. Now, what I had talked to Michael about was that we'll have to contact them, and they have to consent, they have to be willing to piggyback, allow us to piggyback and enter into an agreement. So we still have that step to go.
And I have a call set up for next week with them to verify that.
With who?
With RSA and Southern Strategies.
Okay, Betsy, did you?
Isn't Brian Oliver also offering lobbying opportunities? And maybe
Our firm no longer has a lobbying group.
oh, not at all. Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
realize
no.
that.
Yeah.
All right, so, then I guess that leaves us today, we're not in a position to make any kind of recommendation, correct?
Well, I think once we know if
I
they're
think-
willing to work with us in piggybacking, then we can come back around to this committee with the board and have that recommendation.
Yeah, I guess your recommendation, since you will be meeting again between now and the board meeting, you could recommend to select one or the other, assuming that they were willing to piggyback, and I can tell you what they each charge, if you give me a minute to look
Well,
at it.
I'm pretty familiar with that.
You're
since
familiar
I've
with
been-
both of them, I believe.
I am, and I'm certainly familiar enough with the advocacy work that's done in Tallahassee to know that it is unimaginable to me that either one of them would say that they wouldn't be interested.
And that would be my expectation. So the
I
question
mean-
is, do you have a preference? Does this
Well-
committee have a preference that you want to make a
Does-
recommendation?
Betsy, do you want to speak to that, or Melanie, either one of you, because I can speak to it very thoughtfully if you don't have.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
For this year only, I would recommend that we go with RSA for TBARTA, only because of the success that we've had at PSTA with the work that they have been doing for us. And since it's transportation and transit oriented, it kind of goes hand in glove with what we are doing at PSTA and trying to wear the two hats for both agencies on finance and money. So, the gentleman who is the principal at RSA is sitting here in our audience. If either of you would like to talk with him, or if it's appropriate to ask him what he thinks. Alan?
He certainly can tell us if he's willing.
I don't know if you've heard this, if we're kind of catching you off guard.
Yeah, we're definitely willing to piggyback.
They're definitely willing to piggyback.
And while,
Betsy?
sorry.
Melanie? Thoughts?
Hello, I'm sorry, I'm kind of, that's a little something going on here. I'm all right with your recommendation. I think whatever we can achieve, we've got to get this going, obviously.
Right, they can't vote, they can consensus.
What?
You don't have a quorum physically present. so-
Well, we're not voting, we're
Right.
making recommendations to the full board, but the
Right.
full board is gonna be meeting here, I guess, before we would have a chance to get everybody together again, and the likelihood of getting a quorum between now and next Friday might be somewhat minimal.
Right, I think we can report, you can
There
report
you
back
go.
to the board that it was discussed.
Okay,
and that-
you're in. Great.
Who is in?
Pat Kemp.
Oh, hey, Commissioner, thank you for joining us. We,
Sure. And on that note, really quickly, this is Melanie. I do have to sign off in about 3 minutes. I have a 10:30 call, but just want to make sure you guys know if I drop off for a little bit, that's what it is, and then I'll call back in when it's over.
all right, thank you for letting us know. Commissioner Kemp, I'll tell you where we are in our brief agenda, and we don't have a quorum, present, so we're not able to vote, but we're in a posture to recommend to the Legislative Appropriations Committee a 1.5 million appropriation for TBARTA, and posture it to be a recurring revenue stream for the agency. Does that meet with your approval, or do you have questions about that?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Does that meet with your approval?
Sure. I think. I don't know the financing and everything or what, but yeah.
Well, Debbie Leos is here, and she has put together the projected budget that she spoke about at our last board meeting. and it was on her recommendation with regard to the finance that's actually needed by TBARTA that we move forward with a $1.5 million ask. So that's what we're doing. And then secondly, to comply with the request of the board at our last meeting, we began the discussion about whether or not we needed to hire an advocacy firm to help us with this appropriation in Tallahassee. And we started talking about, and our attorney is here, Alan Zimmett. We started talking about whether or not he had found out if it was possible to piggyback on any of the contracts we have now, and he did find out that of all the agencies, we can piggyback on PSTA or the county. Was it Hillsborough?
Pinellas County. Pinellas County.
And the recommendation thus far has been that we go with RSA because, well, they're actually sitting here and they are the advocate for PSTA, and they have done a very good job of helping us bring back dollars to the county.
May I ask
Yes,
you a question now?
Commissioner Starkey is here.
So, I'm looking at the PowerPoint for our next meeting, and I'm trying to recall, I don't have any minutes from our last meeting, but what it says here in the PowerPoint is that we talked about $150,000 in the budget for federal and state. So, so this will take care, so we've got to split that between the two. We still have to talk about what we're gonna do about federal.
No, this
Right.
$150,000
Right?
is to cover the contract for the federal and the state
Right.
advocacy.
But RSA is just, are you represented, do you do Washington?
No, we have Van Scoyac for our federal lobbyists, so we haven't got.
But he just said that we can't piggyback, but we can go out for a
That's
contract?
right.
Right, we're gonna, so we can either contract with Hillsborough counties, federal lobbyists, or we can go out and do our own separate
Right,
procurement.
so those are our choices on federal. We piggyback on Hillsborough, or we go out,
Your own.
And the
on our
feeling
own.
was that the federal, because it is not as time sensitive.
Right,
The state is time sensitive
Good.
because of the legislative session
Right.
dates.
right.
But I just want Ron to hear that we talked
He
about.
doesn't do federal anymore.
I know, but the 150 is for federal and state. It's not 150
For him.
for him.
He knows
I
that.
understand that, yes, ma'am.
He understands. I would like to recommend, and then please all weigh in, that we do an RFP that we recommend to the board that we do an RFP for the federal advocate. Does that be with Betsy, are you okay with that? Commissioner Kemp?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. That is the $150,000 that we have budgeted, correct?
Yes.
For both, yes. So I don't know how we're splitting that up either, but,
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
okay, all right.
So don't worry, we're not gonna go over the budget.
Commissioner Long knows how that works.
Well, I mean, okay, it's only because I've been involved on it on the other end.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be fine.
There's plenty of money.
See what she
There's
said?
plenty of money.
I've been working hand in glove with her. Debbie Leos, I feel like I'm tied to her hip. She says it's plenty of money. Commissioner Kemp, are you okay with the recommendation to go out for an RFP on the federal advocate?
Sure. In terms of the RSA, and I'm not sure that I know that much or am all that familiar, but I'm just wondering too, in terms of the legislature, what could be the change in legislature or changing governorship, you know, in terms of the kind of effectiveness with RSA.
I don't know that would affect what they do. They don't really, I mean, they continue their work, whether there's always a change in administration in the governor's office every 4 years. How old is your firm, Ron?
10.
And they're 10 years old.
I think
Yeah.
Commissioner Kemp missed the point when we were saying earlier that it would be a one-year contract.
Yes, did you hear that, Commissioner
I'm
Kemp?
sorry, I forgot.
Okay.
Were you on when we said that we would, use them for this year only, and then my thought would be,
No, I like,
Do an
that's
RFP.
good. Mhm.
and then next year we'll go out on an RFP, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, and then, Brad, maybe you could speak to what what the amount of the total ask might be for the project development, the RFP, RT, the Regional Transit Feasibility Plan Catalyst Project, to go into the project development phase and have access to $5 million in the project development funds through FDOT. Is that the $5 million they've been talking about giving us anyway?
FDOT has programmed in their 2019 work program, which started on July 1st, $5 million to be allocated to TBARTA to advance the preliminary design of the 41-mile rapid bus system planning. So this ask to the state legislature, at least as it's envisioned, as you see, it doesn't have a number in there because, first of all, that preliminary design process will refine the cost estimate, which I think is 441? 455? 455 $455 million is an estimated for the project. Right now, the plans so far that Scott Pringle and WSP have advanced so far have assumed a funding plan that would require that the project would seek federal funds for about 50% of their funding, and then the state and locals would come up with the other $225 million. Whether or not that remains the plan is hasn't been decided exactly how it's funded. So that's why we kind of left this nebulous. I know that TBARTA members, the Tampa Bay Partnership, and others have had discussions with legislators already about the project, and I think there's general support for it by our Tampa Bay delegation, and so I think there'll be just discussions about how it gets funded. What's the best way for it to get funded through a combination of federal, state, and local funds. So, obviously, I think that Chair Holton indicated that he is going to ask for the TBARTA board to vote on support for the project at an upcoming meeting. I think he's targeting the November meeting for a TBARTA vote to support or not support the project, and then to, I guess, accept the $5 million and advance the design. This would be in concert with that. Then the TBARTA legislative agenda would advocate on behalf of the project to receive the necessary state funding to make it happen.
So I guess what I am hearing you say, to wrap that up, is that today, in this meeting, we're not exactly positioned to be able to insert an amount in there.
Right.
But I do envision by the time we meet in this committee next month, that we might be in a better position to put a date in there. I know that I've got my legislative committee meetings lined up with legislative leadership between now and the middle of next month. I've got them pretty much all scheduled on my calendar. And I think we'll have a better understanding after that of where we are, potentially. And again, you know, we won't be able to go much further than that, I think, until after Election Day.
Right.
Because then we look at organizational session and then committee weeks. Is that right, Ron?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So,
So that's essentially a placeholder for the premium transit project at this point.
now, with regard to the $1 million that we've already received from our appropriation last year, is it possible to start the, isn't there some ability to get a head start on the planning and design piece?
Yes, well, I mean, that specifically is for a regional transit development plan, but there's a group of folks that are developing the scope of work and about to issue an RFP for that work, that I would hope, the way it's, at least the drafts of the scope that I've seen, would not only accomplish sort of a regional TDP, but it would certainly include this project and help advance maybe coming up with some financing recommendations for this project. So yes, the $1 million will not go to waste, or it'll help advance this project.
But we want to be able to show that we're moving forward and utilizing those funds in a way to keep us going forward, right?
Right. I mean, the goal will be to do the RFP in the next, hopefully very soon, so that it can be approved by the TBARTA board. You know, the consultant can get going before the approved by the TBARTA board the project started before the legislative session kicks off. Yeah.
Is Commissioner Kemper, are you good with that?
Well, as you all know, I don't think this is a good project. So I personally am working in the other direction because I do not want to see this funded. So no, I'm not good with that aspect of it.
Commissioner Beanak?
Sorry, it's taking me a while. Yes, we absolutely have to keep moving this project forward. That's going to be so very important that we're going to be able to show, you know, the commitment to not only the TDP, but implementing a project in the TDP, whatever that project is. I know the BRT is the planned project now, but that doesn't mean long range other projects won't be programmed. You know, it takes a long time to obviously program these projects, but we've got to move forward and show success, I think, in order to be able to get the funding.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I guess I would be interested, and we don't have to have the discussion now, but I've listened carefully, Commissioner Kemp, to the way in which you have articulated your opposition and your thought process, and I guess I'm wondering if you are aware of the length of time it takes to position an idea to the time that you get funding for it, because as I'm sure you know, even though you don't agree entirely with the entire plan, sometimes you can throw the baby out with the bathwater and end up with nothing. So we've been doing that for about 50 years. Seems to me we ought to start thinking a little more strategically about how to get to the end game, and we cannot include every single thing on the front end and come out with anything at the back end, because the system doesn't work that way.
Well, I'm extremely aware of how transit is funded, and there hasn't been plans put forth in any of these jurisdictions, except for the high-speed rail, of course, which we had funded. But
thank you.
As far as I'm talking about the high-speed rail that we had prior in that
right.
We lost.
Right. No, I get it. I said thank you.
But yeah. So anyway, what I would like to see if we did anything was to have TBARTA lobby to have money invested in HART and invested in PSTA to run these express buses. That's where I think we should be going. I have no interest at all. I have no interest at all in this project as it's set out. I think it's a huge boondoggle, and that's what I don't like is taking all those years, if this actually happens, to hold us up with this project that is, to me, a waste of dollars and won't move anybody. And I do intend to, this project I think is bad. It's not that I'm waiting for the other project. I think this project in and of itself is a bad project which should not be moved forward. So I'm opposed to this project. I can't see anything that could be done to it, except for to go back to the 2015 study that Scott Pringle did on express buses, and is exactly the plan that I came up with in my head without even seeing that, where they have 6 stops that are there already, where they have express buses and they put them up there, and we actually move people, and we get HART and PSTA and get them some funding to do these express buses and to do that system, and then we can start working on other things.
Okay, well, I hear your opposition, and it's well intended, I know, but this committee is about moving forward and not stopping and standing still. So I do hear that the majority of us are interested in moving forward, and we will make this recommendation to the board. And then,
of course.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else that we need to take up this morning? Betsy?
I just want to make sure that you know that I also want to move forward with this project, and I think this is our first step for regional cooperation. I don't think it's the last step and only step, but we need to take that first step. So I will be voting in favor as well.
Thank you. And the other piece, oh, did you know?
Did you want to cover the?
Yeah, the other piece, and thank you, Michael, for bringing that back to my attention. It does seem to me from sitting through these meetings that there's a little tweak that needs to be made to the current statute. And I would like to recommend to the board that we tweak the statute that created TBARTA to allow the mayor of Tampa and the mayor of St. Petersburg to have to be able to appoint a designate from their administration to sit on TBARTA if the elected official is not able to do so, because we need to make sure that those 2 largest governments are represented, the municipalities, and it's unfortunate when they're not able to attend. Is there anyone that objects to that?
Okay. No, but I do admit that it's been nice to have them in attendance, so.
I agree 1,000%. It's just that those 2 particular cities are strong mayor form of governments, and so it's not as though they have a city manager that can be running the day-to-day when they're not around, and very often they are called to be in another part of the country. They're not even able to, physically be here. So I would like to ensure that we have them present. The other thing that we've run into a bit of a snag with is our ability to take a vote on these committees when we don't have a physical quorum in the room. And I know that there are some boards that operate where if the person is on the phone and that establishes a quorum, you are able to vote and take a recommendation. It's a stronger recommendation to the board, and I'm just wondering if you think we might ask the legislature to give us permission to do that, given the regionalizing element of this board and how vast our region is and how difficult it is to travel around in it.
One thought, or maybe we should let you answer, and then I'll give my thought.
I just was gonna advise the board, there are some statewide agencies that have been authorized by the legislature to have quorums by allowing people to attend by electronic means. Our intent was not just to apply to the committees, but if the board is willing to pursue this, that we wanted to apply to the governing board as well. And one example that I can give everybody is the Citizens Insurance, which is a governmental entity. They have been authorized to have meetings attended by phone with the requirement.
We can even FaceTime.
Well, that's what I wanted to say.
With the requirement that if the public wants to call in, you have to allow the public to be able to call in as well. So that was the one caveat that was placed on citizens.
What we do, and I think it must be state statute, that if you have an emergency, only for an emergency right now, for a BOCC meeting, and you want to participate if it's approved by the other board members, you can participate in voting, but you have to be on, you have to have the face, you know, you have to have it FaceTime, yeah. And so, and I think that would be a good requirement, is that if you're gonna participate in voting, you should be on FaceTime, so it's just another protection.
You can only do that now under the present law if physically present at the meeting is a quorum. So for example, today, you don't have a quorum of the committee here present,
Right,
so you can't take a vote,
right.
even though you have a quorum with the people on the phone. What we were talking about doing was requesting the legislature allow BARTA to establish a quorum by people, counting the people who are appearing by phone
Yeah.
or other electronic means.
I just wonder if we should allow them to do it by FaceTime rather than on the phone.
I just don't know, is there limitations on FaceTime as to how many people can join? Because again, what the legislature did with citizens, they required them to allow the public to participate with the same means.
Well, I mean, it's 2018,
Right.
almost 19. We have telecommunication
Exactly.
capability. It ought to be, there ought to be a way for us to beam people in.
Well,
I don't know about that much about the technology in our boardroom, but I know.
You're just saying that they, I mean, we can have the technology for the board members,
Yeah,
certainly, but it's like all the citizens.
Well, they
Well, I
can
think
call
what you have to
in,
do is you at least have to allow them to be able to call in.
call in, yeah, but,
So I,
Okay.
for example,
Although-
I'm familiar with meetings that are held by Skype Business, where other people can call in on the phone and participate even though they don't have Skype Business.
Right.
So there's-
Betsy, do you want to weigh in on this conversation?
Well, sorry, I'm holding a baby, so you may be hearing a baby right now, but,
Oh,
the reality is, I think there was some problems with this. I think that's why the legislature tightened up on it, and maybe somebody there familiar with this issue, because we had a long discussion about this previously, but I think there was some problems with some boards having telephone meetings, and whether or not, you know, there was not people present, or there were sunshine violations. I really don't know. Maybe the attorney knows more about it.
well, maybe we could at least explore it and ask Ron if he can track that down. Commissioner Kemp, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea. I think that no decision should be made without a quorum physically present. And I think that that is, you know, I don't know that there are exceptions of that in the legislature. I'm not familiar with them if there are. But you know, I'm definitely not familiar with everything that's done there. I just know it's a steep bar, and I wouldn't want to be the organization that breaks it. I just think we have inherent issues when we're trying to, you know, convene a regional group like this, which again, I think transit in particular, not the roads, but transit is a local issue. So I find it kind of ironic and not surprising that, you know, it's so difficult and we're making these decisions about these local places way out of the way where people can't get to. But I do think that we should be requiring that for public protection. And like today, I couldn't get in for the first 15 minutes because my password wasn't working for whatever reason. It's the same one that let me in 20 minutes into the call. And then I just got cut off and I just called in again. So I do think that that is an issue, and you know, I do think we need to be open to the public and have the public know what we're doing. And I still don't think we've actually had a discussion on the BRT actually at any meeting. So anyway, I'll throw that out there.
Well, I appreciate
It's Melanie Griffin. I just want to let you know I'm back.
Oh, hey, welcome back, Melanie. We're talking about tweaking the statute to allow for committee members to vote, even if there's not a quorum in the room, as long as we have a quorum with folks that have called in and are FaceTiming or telecommuting so that we can see them. And Commissioner Kemp was just saying she's not aware that there was an exemption to that anywhere in the state, but there very definitely is, and the attorney just spoke to it because Citizens is allowed to do that, and I believe that Enterprise Florida is able to do that as well, although I'm not 100% certain. So if that means, yes.
but I have warning bells going off, though. If we're gonna allow citizens to call in, that could take that could get a little crazy. As far as, are we allowed to limit, I mean, we can limit speaking time to 3 minutes, but what if we get disruptors, and, you know, we have this happen at our commission meeting. Sometimes the commissioner stacks the room with people, and, I mean, 2 hours of public comment, we didn't even get our business done, before lunch, and everybody had to come back after lunch. So, are we allowed to limit, public comment, say, before meeting to the first 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then we can resume our, and then they can talk after, even if some of us have to leave, so that we can get our business done? Then I would be okay with that. But if we have unlimited call-in, from the public at the beginning, we could never get our business done, potentially.
So let's, we'll run that by the legislative group and see what we come up with, and we'll come back with some recommendations. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, and, with that, is there any other priorities that you think need to be discussed today in this meeting? Anyone? Commissioner Starkey?
Nope, I think you answered my questions for the federal and the state.
Commissioner Kemp?
Well, as I said, I would like to, talk about, or think about getting funding to our two large transit agencies, HART and PSTA, to do right now they're getting express bus funding, but to robustly see what is needed to robustly
This is a 5 or 6 county, how many counties are on TBARTA? So why are we singling out 2 counties for funding?
Okay, so hold
because
on.
that's exactly where the BRT is running that you're talking about.
So Commissioner Kemp, can you give the committee an update on where your county is with the referendum that I do believe has 45% of its dollars coming to HART?
Right, I'm not involved, it's a private referendum, so I don't know. We do have now, it's been added in the last month, now a school board referendum for a half cent.
Right.
That was asked by the school board. The referendum is for a full cent, 45% for HART, 55% for roads or transportation of some sort. And it's broken down into percentage categories, and more than it's on the ballot. There hasn't been, I don't think, too much. I mean, I haven't seen any public meetings about it or anything like that.
I was just curious. I thought you might have an update. But does HART go over into any of the other counties?
Well, it does into Wesley Chapel, and that's exactly what we're talking about with the BRT. And that's what it's doing right now. Yeah, it's going into Paso.
Okay.
This is Betsy, and I just want to say before we end this call, I hear Commissioner Kemp, but I've got to say, the BRT is certainly going to be in Pinellas and Hillsborough County, so I don't know why we're talking about additional funding at this time for Pinellas and Hillsborough County transit. So for me, it'd be a non-starter at this point to put that as priority, because we have to have long-range plans, and I get that, but to be funding individual transit agencies at this time, you're going to lose Manatee County support for sure if that's what our goal is.
Well, and to that point, Betsy, I do know that PSTA goes down to Manatee, and we're very, very proud of that. And I'm looking forward to having some additional projects on our list that go down to Manatee, because I know I go down there now quite often, and it's very, very crowded. It's getting to be just like Pinellas. Thank you.
If that's the goal, then I think we should, I'm talking not about the specific counties, but about the operations and funding the operations now, and doing exactly what the BRT is doing, but without spending $430 million on stations, and actually putting it in, investing it in operations and moving people. So that's going to definitely include Manatee as part of it, or whatever other regional routes that are done. and make that part of what the funding would be, but to the agencies that are doing it now to do more robust funding in those areas.
All right, thank you for your thoughts, and if is there anything else that anyone else would like to talk about? Melanie, do you have any thoughts?
I don't, partially because I was a little bit in and out of the discussion, but I've been on board with everything I have heard, so I don't have anything further to add.
Terrific. Then I think we are in a position to be bringing this meeting to an end because we have finance starting in just a few minutes. So thank you very much, everybody that phoned in, and stay tuned for 3 more minutes and we'll be in our finance meeting. Thank you. Bye.
Are they in the finance committee?
I don't know.
Yeah, anybody that's on the finance committee that's on the phone can just stay on the line.
Stay on the line, okay, good.
Yeah.
How's the baby doing, Betsy? I haven't heard her cry 1 minute.
Well, we're actually out walking her around right now. I'm gonna go to sleep.
You're such a good grandma.
So I've got 2 dogs and a baby.
And you're on the phone conducting a meeting. Wow, you're certainly good at multitasking.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna go ahead and start the finance committee, but I probably will turn it over to you as chair
Okay.
of the, well, not as chair, I'm gonna say as the secretary. So, I'm just letting you know that once we do hit 11 o'clock, I'll probably go ahead and start the meeting, but since I'm out walking, I don't even unfortunately have the agenda in front of me.
That's
so.
okay. Hopefully you'll be able to stay on and keep on listening, because we have lots of good news to report again. And
Great.
if it's all right with you, it's just about 10 to 11 on our